Good morning. It's a couple of minutes after 8 o'clock and I'm on the trail. Well, I woke up, off and on all night like I always do, but then it was about 10 of 6, and, sunrise is around 6, so I said, well, I should wait till sunrise at least, so I kind of rolled over and woke up again, and it was 10 minutes of 7, so that's when I got up. So a little over an hour to get out of camp. I was trying to move quite along because it was cool. It was about 48. So my fingers are, of course, a little numb. So we're still on the access trail away from camp. I didn't film in camp again because there's nothing new going on. But two guys did show up and stayed in the shelter. They showed up just after I finished filming last night, so kind of late. I think they were canoe people. Anyway, here on the access trail to High Falls is the other most highly photographed artifact on the Cranberry Lake 50 trail. We saw the gas stove earlier. Here is the piece of unknown equipment. It's big. It's steel. It's heavy. Now, my guidebook says that this was used for road grading, and I'm going to say, in its current configuration anyway, that seems unlikely because it's lacking any kind of plow that might be used for road grading, and all this equipment up here with the pulleys and whatnot, don't see the use of that for road grading. So maybe it had a plow somewhere, and it was a multi-use piece of equipment, and the plow's just not here. But I think it was also used for maybe dragging logs out of the woods. Don't know. It's interesting though. So obviously it was abandoned here. And now just something for everyone to photograph as they walk by. So it'll be a couple more minutes, and we'll come to the trail junction, and we'll talk more there. Well, it's now about 8:15, and we're back to the main trail. That's 0.4 of a mile for the spur trail, and we're going to continue on down this way towards Wanina. Although, as the trail signs helpfully point out, you can actually get to Wanina either way, and it's actually a little shorter going back the way we came. But we're going left, which will take us there via the Wanina Primitive Corridor, and that's the first time I've heard that name. So we have a few features to look forward to down here. In 7/10 we'll come to something called Carter's Landing. I'm not entirely sure we'll know when we get there. And then 1.2, I believe it is, we'll come to a junction with the Five Ponds Trail. And unless things are very much amiss, we will definitely know when we are there. It's about 9:15, and we've come to the intersection with the Five Ponds Trail. Not sure where Carter Landing was. There was an area where we came very close to the river, and I guess it's likely that that's where it was. Unfortunately, our trail sign is mostly missing, so we can't pick up any information there. My spreadsheet is telling me it's about 3 miles to get to the spur trail to High Rock. So the sky is mostly blue, and what clouds there are do not look threatening. I'm sure it's warming up. I've been walking through a lot of tall weeds and brush, and I am pretty much soaked from the knees down and pretty damp above that, just from walking through wet brush. Hopefully that'll tend to dry off, and then we can dry off. My feet are also totally soaked, partly from that and partly from walking through various beaver dams and similar things. I don't know if that's going to continue the whole way to Wanina or not. So I'm not sure how much drier we're going to end up being. And my wife just sent another message saying, well, now the forecast says there's 40% chance of thunderstorms between 2 and 5. Unless I lollygag a lot, we should be in camp by 2. So that should be okay. We have about 10.5 to 11 miles to do today, including that 0.4 of a mile spur trail into High Falls. So not a lot given the terrain, which is going to be pretty much dead flat. So it's just a few minutes later, and well, there's a place here where it could be a little confusing. Well, you'd have to be pretty determined to miss this, but I missed it the first time anyway. So you're walking down along here on a nice long straight section, and you just keep going straight. There's a couple of sticks in the trail. Well, that's not too unusual. And you come down here, and the trail seems to go off into a bog somewhere, and somebody's helpfully put this brush here, and you can look up and see that this brush did not fall here. So that's a pretty good clue, although the trail continues on, so somebody didn't get it. But in fact, if we go back around, the trail goes up that way. So we are at High Rock, and behind me is the Oswegatchie River. Hope I'm pronouncing that close to correct anyway. We got here about 10:30. And, well, I was hoping that High Rock here would be in the sun, and I could soak up some rays, but unfortunately it's in deep shade under some pine trees. I'll let you take a look here. Whoops. Very pretty. I can see a beaver lodge over there. Current is pretty clearly flowing left to right. Very nice. So I've taken a look around, and there are some tent sites here, although curiously there are no camp here decals or whatever you want, markers. There is a privy, so obviously they intend, I think, for people to camp here. And but I found nothing that yells out hang a hammock here. There's some reasonably open forest nearby. You could probably find something in there, but it wouldn't be primo. So I'm not alone. We have 3.7 miles to go to Wanina, and probably a pretty easy trail to get there. It's about 10 after 12, and we have hit roadway, paved roadway. So we came from that way, and there was a register a short distance back there. And I think I can see a blue Cranberry Lake 50 sign up there. So we're approaching Wanina. So when you come out on the road, where near that gate where I was before, the sign kind of directs you down to a little playground, and there's a parking area there and whatnot. And you might want to think you want to continue, well, in basically any direction that would take you, but you don't. you want to basically follow that road you came out on a short distance to an intersection, and then turn left, which is actually kind of west, and across this bridge. And then I'm pretty sure you want to turn right, and that will bring you to downtown Wanina, where there's a public restroom and the general store and a nice pavilion. Might be handy if it's raining. Little park area. And then we're going to go up to the stop sign and turn a left on what I think is going to be 2nd Street. And don't turn right on your first right onto 1st Street. That's not the way to go. But do take your 2nd right onto Ranger School Road. My notes say it's Ranger School Road. There is no sign here visible from this side. The other side of the sign says Ranger School 1.2 miles. I guess I figure everyone in Wanina knows where the Ranger School is. So, that way. It's about 5 minutes after 1, and we have come to the trailhead for the Peavine Swamp Trail. A really not very appealing name, but it might be nice. So you find this immediately after you pass that rack of canoes for the Ranger School. And this is supposed to be a nice woods road in here. And there's 3 loops, and the nearest one to us is actually loop 3. So more on that when we figure it out. So it's, again, according to my spreadsheet, 1.2 miles to the lean-to from here. So not too far. At 25 after 1, we've come to the intersection that the guidebook promises. And according to the sign, we're at the start of loop 3, or one end of loop 3, and the lean-to is half a mile on that way. I wasn't sure how explicit the signage was going to be in regards to the lean-to, but there it is. Can't miss it. Then you come to another junction where Loop 3 trail apparently goes that way, and the lean-to trail 0.2 of a mile that way. Guess which way we're going? Home sweet home. So we just arrived here at the shelter at about 1:45, and we're just sitting here in the front of the shelter. Haven't done anything yet. Well, all right, I did find 2 trees because they're right there and obvious, and I'm sure there are others if you look further, but why look further? was about to say there are no mosquitoes here, but there's one. But they were pretty thick in various places on the trail coming in here, so that's a good sign. Just sitting here without having to move my butt a bit, this is the view. Not too bad. And coming down here, I heard voices and thought maybe there was a whole bunch of people here, but actually there's the voices of people in canoes and kayaks out on the water. It's a popular activity. So there is a privy behind here. There's probably space for some tents. Oh, I'm sure there is. Well, actually, I'll do a tour and then report back on that later. So I am all but completely dry. That section of trail between High Falls and High Rock has a lot of areas that are grassy and brushy, and I think I complained about this earlier, but I'll complain again because I was by the time I got through there, I was wetter from mid-thigh down than I've been the whole trip, even 2 days of hiking in the rain. Just going through all that, you hear some of the commotion on the lake. Anyway, but there was very little of that after High Rock, although there was a place I had to wade more than ankle deep through some beaver activity. But then, of course, I had the about 2 miles road walk through Wanina, and the trail in here was pretty dry. So I am pretty much completely dry, except my feet are still damp. We'll work on that. All right. Well, I guess we'll start to set up, because that'll allow me to get stuff aired out and everything in the pack dry, because it's not dry yet. We are approaching 2 o'clock, and Kim said chance of thunderstorms 2 to 5, and doesn't look like it right now. But as we know, the weather up here is kind of volatile, so we shouldn't dawdle. So here to the right of the shelter, as you're standing in front of it, I've got a couple of trees, and I spotted these as I was walking in, just looking around, and it's this maple here and this pine here, and I think that pine is too big for a 6-foot strap. So again, it's a good thing I've got a 10. This is what the lake looks like from the shore immediately in front of the lean-to. Again, this is not the main body of the lake. I don't think we've seen that yet. This is another flow or inlet. And there is a lot of boat traffic that comes through here, both power boats and paddled or rowed. We're down here to get some water. So after collecting water, well, we've mostly been just hanging out here in the hammock reading and relaxing. It's like vacation. I did take a look around, and there are, other places to hang hammocks near the shelter, and the forest in this area is kind of surprisingly sparse. Trees are kind of small, but there's not a lot of underbrush either. So anyway, I think there's a very large number of places that a hammock could be hung a little ways away from the shelter without too much problem as well. Let's see, anything else? Oh, so in fact, the larger of the 2 trees that I hung the hammock from was in fact much too big to be used with a 6-foot long tree strap. So again, that's why I have a 10. Of course, if I had, there's always a situation where I might have 2 huge trees, and I should have brought 2 10-footers. well, you can't plan for every contingency. So I'm pretty happy with my setup of having 110 and 1.6. By the way, in order to get the 110 and the 1.6 from Dutch, well, I emailed first to see how I could do this, and he said, well, order 2.8s, and then put in the notes with the order that instead of 2.8s, you want 1.10 and 1.6. So that's pretty clever. So that's how to do it if you want to do the same. All right, well, I'm going to go back to reading. Eventually, we'll do up some dinner. We'll probably do that over in the shelter. The only reason it's not certain is last time I was over there, it seemed mosquito infested, whereas right here, we're blissfully free of them. So if that continues to be the case, we might do dinner here under the tarp. So I initially set up the tarp with in porch mode with the open side, facing the shelter, which made most sense just from an organizational standpoint. But there's occasionally strong winds, and they're consistently coming from that direction, kind of northwestish. So I needed it that clearly was not going to work with porch mode open on that side. So I switched to the other side and also rigged up something to pull out the panel pulls to fight against the gusts. Of course, when I'm filming this, it's calm now, but so that's just a stick I picked up here. Someone collected for firewood, and I have string, but it was easier to use some string that somebody left hanging around the lean-to. And we just wrapped around here once near a little stick, holds it in place, and then down to one of my spare tent pegs, and secured with a taut line hitch. So I'm sure this is going to be much more stable for me. Sorry about falling down. So what I'm going to do now, I'm heating water for tea, and then I'm going to move on directly to heating water for dinner. It is now about 10 minutes of 5. So tea is steeping, and we're moving on to dinner. Dinner tonight is chicken and rice with vegetables. Another, or at least based on another Babelfish 5 meal. And the ingredients are ground chicken, white rice, peas, onion, celery, green peppers, garlic, salt, Italian seasoning. And I tried this once before on the main trip at the Peavine Lean-to, as I recall. And it didn't work out. In fact, in the end, I couldn't eat it all. And the major problem was I didn't put enough water in. Basically, meals with rice absorb more water than other meals. At least that's the way it seems to me. So, and that was the origin of my new rehydration rule: is put in more water than you think you need, unless you're really sure. So I'm going to add a bunch of water, and if it turns out soupy, I'm okay with that. So our chicken and rice has achieved a boil, and it's now partly in its koozie, and soon will be entirely in its koozie, and we're going to let it sit for half an hour. So this is the other half of my new reconstituting or rehydrating rule is there's no harm in letting it sit longer, and probably some good to be done. So we'll be back in half an hour. In the meantime, I'll sip on my tea. By the way, I think I've mentioned that I don't always sleep all that well at night. So when I drink tea in the evening, it's always decaffeinated tea. So bring both caffeinated and decaffeinated. I would only use the caffeinated if I was making tea in the morning, and can't remember the last time I did that. But well, what's a tea bag weigh? So that's the plan. So we have rehydrated. I put in way more liquid than I thought it was going to need, and there is virtually none left. So now I don't really know how much to put in, do I? A lot. So it's not soup, and as I said, if it had been soup, that would have been okay. So, but I think another lesson I learned is I need to cut down on the volume of meals made with this recipe, or the weight. This dehydrated weight of this prepackaged was, not including the packaging, is 4.5 ounces, and it's going to take a while for me to eat all that. It's a lot. In reality, it only took me about 10 minutes to eat that. I must have been hungry. So I actually purposefully saved this for the last night, just in case it turned out to be inedible again. And if I had to carry it out, at least I'd only have to carry it out, the last day. But maybe it's also good that I did that because I was going to be hungry. Here's a boat. They're going by all the time. Anyway, well, now we have to clean up, do that kind of stuff, and work our way towards bed. It's about 20 of 6. It's now about 10 after 6, and well, we've cleaned up and done all of our camp chores. Hung the air sack, brushed our teeth. Everything's picked up. The lean-to is empty. So, nothing to do but read our Kindle. If I haven't shown you the map yet today, I'll do that now. After leaving High Falls this morning, we took the 4/10 mile spur trail back to the main High Falls Loop Trail. We passed the 5 Ponds Trail and made our way through wet brush and grass to High Rock. After leaving High Rock, we traveled an occasionally wet trail into the town of Wanina, where we began our 2-mile road walk, passing the Ranger School, finding the Peavine Trail, Loop 3, and the shelter. Well, it's about 8 o'clock, and we're quickly losing sunlight. So it looks like we're going to be alone here on our last night. I was a little bit concerned about this place because it's accessible both from the trail and the water, and I really didn't know about the water side of things. But, once again, all alone, peace and quiet. It's just me in an empty shelter, which I consider a good thing. So, all in all, the camping experience has been pretty good. There aren't an abundance of hammock spots, but there's always at least one so far. Well, and that's all the news for tonight. We'll do some more reading. Eventually, stop reading. Kim tells me there's supposed to be a meteor shower tonight, so maybe I'll try to get up later and have a look. I can see a little bit of sky. See if I can spot some meteors. Well, see you in the morning. Good night.